German and Danish police have successfully foiled a Hamas plot to kill Jews in Europe, with the Danish Prime Minister describing the plot as being as serious as it gets.
In total, 7 suspected Hamas operatives were arrested across Denmark, Germany and the Netherlands. But some are warning that Hamas's decision to no longer confine itself to attacking Jews in Israel is a very worrying sign.
So what could it mean for us here in the UK? Might Hamas have operatives on our streets? Let's speak to the former head of counterterrorism at the Ministry of Defence, Chapman. Chip, thank you so much for joining us. Is this to be expected, that this conflict and these potential for attacks spill beyond the borders of Gaza, the Palestinian territories and Israel?
Well, it would be a new thing for external ops planning to be conducted by Hamas. So that would be extraordinarily new and a worrying and escalatory development. Now, we actually divide these things into 3 types. So the first type would be directed from and controlled by. That's essentially what the arrests here have done. That is very difficult to get through because the larger scale plots and the more people you have involved, you get leakage from the plotters, and the competence of the security agencies often can find those. So I don't think you'll see too much of that. And of course, there's very little plausible deniability from that. The second group would be sort of endorsed by, that is, if an attack takes place and they say, I did this on behalf of Hamas, Hamas might well say he was a soldier of Hamas. But the more worrying one, I think, is the energizing of the single-issue terrorist, and that is inspired by what is going on in Gaza at the moment. That is worrying because you often, in terms of the Israeli, either West Bank or Gaza, things get what we call flare-ups. And each flare-up has generally in the past been of a very short order. So, for example, the 2021 Operation Guardian of the Walls against the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, actually in that case in Gaza, was 11 days. The 2014 intervention by Israel was 19 days. And the 2008 intervention was 18 days. Now we're up to nearly day 70, and it's that which endures. And of course, the counter-terrorist strategy from the UK, which was revised in July this year, did say that terrorism is enduring and evolving. I think we're going to see another turn here of the enduring and evolving. And it is those single-issue terrorists, the lone wolves, essentially, that's what they were called before, because the haystack is getting bigger and the needle is getting smaller. It doesn't mean an attack is inevitable. It does mean that we'll see more hate crime. We've already seen that in terms of anti-Semitism, anti-Islam actions, and we've also seen more extremism in terms of the referrals to the counter-terrorist internet referral unit, in the CT hotline, counter-terrorist hotline, and in the number of people who've been reported to the PREVENT strategy. That is one of the elements of the counter-terrorist strategy.
Well, this is one of the concerns, how well our PREVENT programme and identifying these individuals that are potentially being radicalised and taking on an extremist ideology, and whether they will then go on to commit terror attacks. How well are we doing in terms of identifying those individuals that could potentially be a threat?
Well, you have to separate, again, 2 things there. So the PREVENT strategy is to stop those who are being radicalised going into, obviously, a attack plotting. And if they were radicalised to the point of view that they were attack plotting, they would be in the pursue part of counter-terrorism. That is, they would be picked up by the agencies and the counter-terrorist police. So it's not a linear progression from any of these things. So just because you've got more people who've been reported to the counter-terrorist hotline doesn't mean that there'll be a algorithmic progression to more terrorism. It might lead to more investigations, but that is a good thing if they then triage that in terms of the subjects of interest and those who might have previously been closed subjects of interest and therefore investigated and, if necessary, arrested. Now, most of the arrests at the moment have been really to do with, prescription sort of offences, those who've been supporting Hamas through speech, not through progressing to terrorism itself, because very few plots actually go into direct action lethality, and that's why there are very few terrorist attacks in the UK, because of the competence of the security agencies. Doesn't mean it won't happen. Those lone wolves, either by a bladed weapon or vehicle as a weapon, the entry point for that is quite low. You just need to have a capable hand or a driving licence.
And of course, as that old adage goes, our counter-terrorism forces have to be lucky every single time. The terrorists have to be lucky once. But Chip Chapman, thank you so much for talking us through those pretty concerning developments on continental Europe.